we've got today the Dundee's Care Home to School framework, which was published on the 11th of this month. So it's just been out for a week. Not sure if anybody's had a chance to have a look at it yet. I had a good look through it yesterday. The deadline, 13th of May, which is a Monday. What I would always recommend to you is that you don't leave it until as long as that. The sooner you start this, the better. Doesn't matter if you submit it really early. The earlier, the better. There's actually 56 lots in this framework, which is probably the most I've ever come across. But that's because of the way that Dundee City Council have done it, which is that you can actually bid for particular routes. So the routes are lots 1 to 53 plus route lot 56. And then there are two other lots, lot 54 and lot 55, which are for future routes. And the difference between those two depends on whether you're bidding for less than 8 seats or 9+ seats. So what I would say to you is have a look through the routes and see which ones you want to bid for. But also bear in mind that you will most likely also need to make sure that you bid for lot 54 and or lot 55, depending on what size of vehicle or vehicles you've got. Because if there are any future routes that Dundee City Council need, then they will call off from those lots. So it's really, really important that you remember to apply for those lots. Dundee City Council have decided to use PCS for this, so sometimes there's another system called PCST, and they're not using that, they're using PCS for this. And there are various appendices you've got to complete and upload. So what I'm going to do is going to go straight into PCS. Excuse me if I'm looking to the right, it's because I've got a big screen there that I'm going to have that I'm going to use when I'm demonstrating this to you live. Do feel free to either put your hand up or put something in the chat functionality if there's something you want me to go back to, or stop and pause on and ask more questions about that. For this, I'm assuming that you are fairly unfamiliar with using PCS. So I'm going to take you right back to the beginning of finding the notice and downloading documents and things like that. So if some of you have, used PCS a lot, then some of this, you'll be thinking, yeah, I know how to do that. But I'm just conscious that there will be some people who have never used it or have only used it every 3 or 4 years when the framework comes out. So that's why I'm going to go right from the beginning. So on the screen here, you should all see the PCS home screen, which should be quite familiar now with the Kelpies on it. I'm just going to log in, and I'm going to log in as me. And excuse me a second, because this often happens. I'm just going to have to get rid of this. The only thing is, it's because that's there. Can't. I want to close that. Okay, so that's me logged in. I'm just going to make sure that I am logged in as me. Right, so when you log in, you won't have that complication because you'll only be registered as a supplier, but I'm registered as a supplier and I'm also registered as a buyer. And I help companies apply for bids. So I am very accustomed to doing exactly what you are about to do. And I'm going to take you through step by step what you need to do in order to submit this bid. So if we go into the suppliers area, first of all, what I'm going to do is search for the notices See if it comes up in latest notices. Okay. So what I would normally do, you can see here, there's quite a lot, there's a lot comes out every single day. So rather than going through every single one, what I'm going to do is just put Dundee in here. You don't have to put the full name. You don't know, sometimes, well, it's City of Edinburgh Council, but I know it's Glasgow City Council, it's Dundee City Council, but you don't need to know exactly what it is. So I'm going to put in there the buyer name, I'm going to put Dundee. I'm not going to put in a keyword for the name of the framework, just in case they've called it something that I wouldn't think to search for. So I'm going to leave that blank. I do know the type of notice I'm looking for, which is a current opportunity. So I'm going to put that, and that narrows down the search quite a lot. So what will come up here is everything that any organisation with Dundee in its name. So that could be a college or something, or a charity or something like that, and where there's any current opportunities. And just so you know, there is also in here this, you can include archived contracts, which goes back, as long as PCS was there. I'm not going to tick that because in this case, all we want is the current ones. So then I can click on search notices. And you can see here all of the Dundee ones. So this second from the top at the moment might not be the same when you come in, because they could have published something else after that. But second from the top in this search at the moment is the Dundee City Council one. Okay, so what do these mean here, these little emblems here? This UK GB flag here, that means that it's of a value, that it's been published more widely. So it's actually been published in Find a Tender Service, FTS, which is something that's UK wide. So previously that would have been European. It would have gone into the European Journal, but now that we're not part of the European Union, it's just UK wide that it goes into. Doesn't matter to you, you're not going to be interested in that. That's just for information. The other thing is a little paper clip, and that means that there are documents attached to this contract notice. And then the last little one is actually a key, which is quite hard to make out, but that's what it is, it's a key. And that means that they're using the post box for this one. So just looking at other ones down here, you've got University of Dundee, just University of Dundee and Dundee City Council with Dundee in their names. So you'll see here, this is, you might not be able to see because it's not that obvious, but this text here is actually blue. It's a dark blue compared to black. And when you get that blue text, what it means is it's a hyperlink and you can click on it. Just before we do that, just say, like as I said before, 13th of May is the deadline. Do not leave it as late as that. Please do this as soon as you possibly can. Click onto the blue link. So you'll see this shape here, submarine type shape, where it says record your interest now. If you don't record your interest, you can still have a look around the notice, you can still have a look, but you can't access the documents until you register now. So the things that you can access are the postbox, the questions, and any documents that are attached until you have expressed interest, but you can still browse the notice as such. But I'm just going to record my interest. So it asks you to save, and that's me done now. Just continue. It takes me immediately to my interest list, which if I go scroll right down to the bottom, here you can see it in here. So that means next time I log in, if I'm saving anything or doing anything, then next time I log in, I can log in and go straight to this one here, which again, if I click on the link, and the other thing is you do get an email that just says you've noted your interest in it. I click on that, it takes you to the actual notice again, eventually. So you can see in here, we have now got more tabs. So we can now access the documents and we can look at the Q&A. We can go to the post box, and if you decide not to go ahead, then you can withdraw your interest as well. So first things first, let's just have a look through the notice itself. So in here, published on the 11th of April, deadline the 13th of May at 12, not 5, it's at 12 o'clock. And it includes the SPD in it, which I'm going to go through. So if we look at the full text, we have got Claire Petrie, who is leading on this bid. You do not contact anyone through that email or phone number. Everything has to go on the questions and answers. You can see here they're expecting it to be in its totality £2.3 million, and it's a 3-year +1+1 framework, so it's a possible 5-year framework that you're going to apply for. And each of these has then got details of the route. And within there as well, we'll notice that there's sub-score on the quality. So there's actually a lot more questions than this, but most of them are pass-fail. We'll go into that in a second. But there are 4 questions where they are scored. Those scores only make up 10%, so the vast majority of the evaluation is going on price. That's for these route ones, okay? So for the route ones. Now, as you can see, we could scroll down forever here because each of these is a route, but what I want to quickly have a look at is route 54 and route 55. So turn away if you don't like screens moving, because I'm going to scroll all the way down to 54 and 55. Okay, route 54. So this is what they're calling the framework spot purchase. So these are the 2 that I think you really need to make sure that you do apply for, as well as the routes that you've chosen. So in this case, it's the same thing. There is a 90% price weighting and a 10% quality. It applies from the new academic year, so middle of August this year. And it's for 3 years +1+1. So you could have a 5-year contract on here. Lot 55, 9 seats plus, they're calling it the minibus in there, but it's exactly the same criteria. We just wanted to check. So I'm presuming this must be a late edition Sidlaw View 104, because otherwise I'm sure they would have had all of the routes in one run, and then the 2 ones at the end, but they've had to do it this way for some reason. So yeah, we've got 56 lots there. If you read these conditions, then you'll see exactly what is required. So you've got to have a license to carry out this service. If it's 8 or less, then it can be a taxi or a private hire license that's issued by Dundee City Council. And if it's 9 or more, then you have to have a PSB operator's license, which is issued by the Scottish Traffic Commissioner. Any questions on that so far, please do pop it into the chat, or if this is as expected, that's fine. Also, all staff, any drivers need to have the accredited photo card, which their transport division of the council will provide, and it'll have a unique number on it. If it's taxi or private hire, then they'll provide the taxi badge number. And also you need to join the PVG scheme prior to the commencement date. They're asking that all taxi and private hire drivers have the SVQ certificate, introduction to the role of the professional taxi and private hire driver. And there is information on this in the tender. And if you don't have that already, they will host training sessions, I believe. And they're actually asking if you can encourage your drivers, etc., to attend that. On the financial side, Dundee City Council are going to use Equifax, which is one of a few online financial checks that can be done. And in Equifax, they're going to check that the scores are 35 or above, and that's about financial strength and stability. You can, if you like, check your Equifax score ahead of time yourself. But if you think for some reason your score is 35 or less, but you don't think that reflects the actual strength of your business, then you can give an explanation in the tender submission and that will be taken into account. You have to provide your 2 years of accounts as part of the SPD. But if you've been trading for less than 3 years, then you can provide other things instead, like a business plan, any accounts you've got so far, and letter of support from your bank. Okay, so there's more details on that. So that's the financial criteria. You've also got to have insurance in place, and the insurance employer's liability, £10 million. And public liability, £5 million, and of course the third party motor insurance as a minimum. If you may not require employer's insurance, so for example I don't require it because I'm the only employee in my company, so that might be the case. The other thing is, if you don't have this insurance or you don't have this level of insurance, then that's okay. There is an option in the SPD that says you don't have to have it just now, as long as you get it by the time the contract is being awarded. So once you've been notified that you've been successful, then you would need to get the insurance and send them evidence that you've got that insurance in place. The reason for that is to avoid suppliers having to go to expense putting the insurance in place and then they don't win the contract. So that's why that's there. So as far as they are looking for Euro 4 at least as a minimum, and it's got to be younger than 2006. So hopefully that doesn't cause you any problems. If it's that's for the bigger vehicles. For the licensed taxi or private hire, it's Euro 5. And mustn't be older than 2011. So hopefully that again doesn't cause you any issues. Please put up any questions in the chat. Hopefully you know how to use the chat if you need it. And then they are looking for a copy of your license to be uploaded as part of this tender. They are hoping that you pay the rate of the real living wage, and they're basically saying that any staff, which includes subcontractors, drivers and passenger assistants directly involved in delivery, and any subsequent call-off must be paid at least the living wage. The real living wage. Okay, so that is something that they are mandating on this. So normally a framework is only 4 years, but this one has got the potential to be 5. And what they've said is that it's so that if you were successful, you know you've got a 5-year contract. So if you needed to invest in a new vehicle, for example, then it's much more worth your while to do that because you know you've got this contract for 5 years. And that, I must admit, for routes especially, is quite unusual, and I'm pleased to see that they're giving whoever wins a commitment that you'll have that route for the full 3 years, with the option to extend 1 and 1. Okie dokie. I think that's it. Obviously in here we've got the thing about the training today. And yeah, you can choose to just, if you don't want to go for any of the routes at the moment, then that's fine. You don't need to, but you can apply for 54 and 55. Or you could apply for as many routes as you wish and 54 and 55. It's entirely up to you which lots you apply for. Any questions on that bit of the contract notice before we move on? Even if you could pop in chat a little thumbs up or something like that, just so that I know that you're still awake and everybody's here and everybody's fine.
Okay, nothing so far, Julie. Everybody seems okay. Chat function, guys, sorry, just in case I didn't say, chat function is a little speech bubble down in the right-hand corner of your screen. Get in touch if you need us.
Okay.
Thanks, Julie.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to go and have a look at the documents now. So the council's already replaced a number of documents. So if you've already been in and downloaded these documents, then you may need to make sure that you delete those ones that you've downloaded and download these new documents. You can see down here the number of downloads. I'm astonished, and I've never seen a number like this before. That there have been 772 downloads of the ITT itself. There have only been 10 downloads of that appendix and 2 and 5 of the other appendixes. I was wondering if there's been a bit of an issue there or something, because it's really unusual to have 772 downloads, especially when the rest of them haven't been downloaded very much. So to avoid missing a document, what you can do is you can download all current documents. So hopefully you'll see this happening on my screen because I'm sharing my actual screen. So if you see up here, I've downloaded the documents into a zip folder there. What I normally do is I then copy this into a folder. So I've got a folder called projects. I would put Dundee City Council and I put the 13th of May in the title as well, so that every time I go to the folder, I don't have to rake about to find out what the deadline is. I know that it's 13th of May, and then I have another folder called the tender docs. So I put in the tender documents folder all of these documents, and it just means that they're there ready for me, rather than having to keep going in and downloading every single time I want to look at a document. What you will get an email if they change a document again. So don't worry about that. You will get an email. Just make sure you do look out for those emails. But you can also see the dates that this happened. So 18th, literally just today, these appendixes have been updated. Okay. So I've downloaded those. I'm not going to create the folder at the moment, but I just wanted to tell you that that's usually a good way to do it. And then create another folder in your Dundee City Council folder called Tender Response. And within there, you move everything that you need to respond to, you copy and paste it into that folder, and then you know what you've got to do. Right, so before we look at those, let's have another look at the Q&A. So in the Q&A, there have been a few questions already. So 4D1, which refers to the ESPD or SPD, Single Procurement Document, Health and Safety. It wasn't very clear whether bidders should upload their policies or whether that will be later on in the process, but they've said upload your health and safety policy now to this. So the contract notice has got four sort of areas which are referred to that make up the 10% scoring on quality. Resources 3, vehicle 3, staff training 2, and fair work first 2, they make up 10. But when you look in the actual appendix 2, then there are more questions there. But the contract notice is just the weighted elements, but the appendix 2 has got more questions in that, and these are pass-fail questions. Just in case you were confused, because it's easy to get confused when there's so many different things. In appendix 2, yeah, there was, the questions didn't make sense. So they have updated that and uploaded a new appendix 2, so that's good. I did ask one further question which hasn't been replied to as yet, so we'll see what they ask for that. But just to let you know, I'm the one that's asked all of these questions. So no taxi operators have asked any questions yet, because, or at least they haven't been answered yet if they have been asked. But what they must do is every single question that gets asked and answered is circulated amongst everybody, so you all get the same information. Let's have a look at these other tabs. Just, this is further information. You can see what's been replaced. We've got Claire there as a contact. Right, so we've now downloaded the documents. I'm going to go to the post box now. So this is basically, because it's all being run in PCS, then everything will be done in here. Okay, so go to the post box. When you go to the post box, it says here, I've got other ones that I'm working on, but you can go and create in here, create, and you can see that it's now created a response for me, and this is where we'll upload these attachments that need to be done. So, you know, you might have appendix 1. No, appendix 1 is one of the ones you don't have. You might have appendix 2, and then you choose a file and you then add it. So I'm just going to quickly choose something, I'll just choose my health and safety policy, just so that you've got something. Now it's not that obvious, but that's it there. You can, if you hover over it, you can see what that is. So that's my health and safety policy, which isn't what I've put in here as appendix 2, but I just want to show you what happens when you click add. Takes a wee second. Then if you scroll down, you can see the attached documents. So you can always check that what you think, have a little list. So either you write it down or you put it in a file. But what I do when I'm going through the ITT, I will highlight various things, and I usually create a little Word document as well, which got all the key things like which documents I've got to complete, when the questions closes, where the deadline is for that, if there's any font to be used or any questions that have got to be answered, and if there's a page limit on those or anything like that, I put them all in this Word document. What it means is, instead of having to scroll through everything again, then I've just got all of that key information to hand, and it just makes life a lot easier. Right, okay, so in here, if that was it, all I had to do, wouldn't life be brilliant? But unfortunately not, there's a lot more work to do. But usually what I would do, I just put dear Dundee City Council, please find my tender attached. You have any queries, please don't hesitate to get in touch. Okay, and then you either dispatch it, which obviously you could probably do, well, you might not in this case because of SPD, or you just save and exit. So I'm going to save and exit this because it just shows you that you can do these at any time you like. So if I save and exit that, then when I come into this area again, which is the postbox response place, you'll see in here that it's edit, dispatch, and delete. Now be really careful. I wish PCS would change this, because the delete is far too close to the edit dispatch. It's literally a millimeter apart. So be careful that you go into edit dispatch rather than delete, and it'll take you back to where you were. And as you'll see, we have got that text that I put in, and we've got the document that I uploaded. If we go here, I want to show you this. This is the next bit we're going to do, is we're going to do the generate the SPD response. Does anybody know what SPD stands for? You could put that in the chat. Anybody going to hazard a guess? Come on, you must want to have a guess. Can't believe you're all that shy. Okay, well, looks like I've not got anybody having a guess. So it's single procurement document, SPD. So that's what this is. Basically, it was introduced by Scottish Government, I think it was 2016. And this is what they use to do the selection stage. So it's a minimum criteria usually. Certainly when it's an open procedure like this, where you're doing everything in one, including putting your pricing in, then most of these questions will be pass-fail. Now, it's not new functionality for the SPD to be included like this, but previously you would maybe have been used to it being a Word document that you complete. But the Scottish Government have basically said, we don't want you to do that anymore. We want you to use the SPD that's built in to Public Contracts Scotland. So that news went out to buyers quite recently. We don't want you to do it. So what it tells you here is you don't need to download and reattach your SPD response. What happens is it won't show down here in your attached documents, but when you submit it, it automatically creates a PDF and sends it to the buyer. And I know that for a fact because I've been on the buyer side recently, and we had used this SPD, and sure enough, in all their submissions, there was also a PDF version of the SPD there. So that is the fact. You don't need to do anything. So if we go into here, generate the SPD response, it takes a wee second because it's actually going into a different website. So this is linked to PCS, but they're not the same website. So this is like the front page is like a file cover for it, if you like. Not that you can do anything, so you could just next it. Don't need to do anything there. Next. Now this is key information. If you did want to change this, so for example, I don't know why that's coming through in the company profile. I'm going to have to go into my company profile and change that, because that's the wrong email address. I don't want that showing, and I don't want the phone number showing either. So I will make a wee note of that for me later. SPD control panel. I need to go in there and change it. Which you can see up here. So this is it up here. That's where you would go to the control panel, but I'm not going to do that just now because it'll complicate life for me. And then you've got the representative details. So if you had somebody else that you wanted to, just say you were using a consultant like me, or if you were using, any other body that wasn't part of the company, then you could add them to your list here. You can create a new one by adding there. Okay, so we're just going to next through that. takes a minute because, as I say, it's like setting this SPD up. So don't worry if you're in this boat as well and it's this circle of doom is going round and round and round. Don't be tempted to keep pressing it. It will eventually, it's like it's creating a brand new single procurement document, and it's very specific to this buyer and this requirement. So that's why it takes a bit of time, but it does eventually get there. Has anybody used the SPD that's built into PCS before, or is this the first time? If you could let me know in the chat.
Okay, I think we've got Jackie and Lisa have used the SPD before.
That's not coming through to me. Okay. Wonder why that's not coming through in my chat.
That's all right. If you can just, when you're putting into the chat, there's a drop-down menu too. If you can just change that to either everyone, or you can send it directly to Julie.
Thank you for letting me know that, Elizabeth. Right, so we've got a couple of people online who have used it before. I'd be interested when we come to the end to see what you think of it. I actually quite like it because when you get the word one, it could be quite easy to miss a question out. And sometimes buyers are a bit lazy and they don't amend the SPD word one, and you have to answer all the questions, even though a lot of them aren't relevant. When the buyer's setting one up on PCS like this, they actually have to pick the questions that they're going to ask, so it's much more bespoke. So it should be it should be much more aligned to the requirement. So let's go on to next. So this is where you need to put in the lots. Now look at this, isn't it interesting the way that this has ordered it? It's got all the ones that have got a 1 first, rather than, it doesn't go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It goes 1 up to 19, and then 2, and then all the 20s, and 3, and all the 30s. So just be aware of that. So make sure that you tick the right ones here. When you are looking at the attached documents, you'll be able to see which ones you are applying. These are all the routes, and remember these two here, 54 and 55, so that you can be considered for future routes. So I'm not sure if it'll let me proceed if I don't tick these, so I'm just going to say 54 and 55. Then it asks you, are you a small or medium-sized enterprise? So if you have got less than 250 employees, then the answer to that is yes. Then asks you how many. And you can put your turnover in as well. So, okay, and then ask you if you're a supported business. A supported business just means you have a proportion, I think it's 50%, might be 30%, have a disability or from a disadvantaged background. I'm going to say no. If you said yes, it then asks you what the percentage is and details of what the disability category and disadvantaged workers is. That's purely just for information. 2A16, it's really only geared at companies that are out with the country. So if you're based in the UK, then you just say no, I'm not applicable, I'm a UK business. Have you paid all of your taxes? Yes. Now, you don't really have evidence of that, and you don't need to put evidence of that, to be honest. But if you leave that blank, you won't be able to submit your SPD. So that's one thing I found out the painful way. So I'm just going to say no to that, because if you tick yes, it then asks you to upload the evidence, but we don't have evidence, so I'm just going to put no. Are you participating with anyone else? So that could be a group, consortium, joint venture. If the answer in this case is no. If you were, then what you need to do is you can download the Word version of the SPD, and that's got to be completed by any other parties in that group or consortium or joint venture, and then upload it as part of your postbox. Right, now, are you relying on anyone to meet those criteria? So remember the criteria we looked at in the advert. This is where that would be mentioned. So again, if you say yes, you'll be asked for more information on what you're relying on them for. But if the answer is no, then that's fine. Just click no. Will you be subcontracting anything? And again, that's a bit different from the question above, but similar. If you say yes, then it asks you for who is going to be subcontracted to, and you have to put in their SPD as well. Okay, so then we've got all of these, what I would call mass murderer type questions. So have we been involved in any of these? Remember again to check no for information available electronically. Let's go through all of these. I'm going to deliberately leave one blank, and I'll show you why in a minute. So I can save this if I wanted to save it halfway through, but by going next, I'm actually saving it as I go anyway. Have I met my taxes? I've not got evidence. Yes, I have. And no, I don't have evidence. Blacklisting, no, no evidence. So you can see all of these things. You'll probably be familiar with these if you've done a SPD in the past. But it's much easier, as you can see, with this online system than it is completing the Word document that's got the squared brackets in it. So we're getting near the end. See down the left-hand side, this is like you can jump from one to the other tabs once you start to know where you are. So I'm near the end. Are there any conflicts of interest? Was I involved in the procurement? Have I had any contracts terminated for poor performance? Have I been guilty of misrepresentation? No. Right, so when I click next, so you've got the tabs at the top, and these were the exclusion bits, and then we're going to move on to the selection bits, and this was all of the exclusion bits. So I'm just going to click next in here, and it takes me, see, I've moved now into the selection bit, which is now blue, and we've now got all of these elements. So you can see there are, what, 6 sections in here that we need to go through for this. Now, in this bit, the advert did mention about enrolment in a professional register, and that means I'm pretty sure that was about the licensing, but I would need to double check, go back here. So what I'm going to say is the answer is yes, and then what we'll put is XYZ, XYX even in this case. So that would be the details, and you can see that it's already up there. If you wanted to add anything else, then you could put your anything else in and add that as well, and then you've got 2 things there. If there was any, like just say there's a publication of licenses online, and you could look your license up online, then you could put that is available electronically and provide a link to a website, or upload a new document that evidences that. So it might well be that you want to upload your license, a copy of your license to this. Now, if you want to do that, it's really easy. You just click upload down here. Again, it's going to take a wee minute. Do find that with this site it does take a bit, but your temptation is to keep pressing, but it's the last thing you should do because it gets itself tied in knots. So just hang on just now. Right, while we're waiting for that, Lisa has asked a question regarding self-employed taxi drivers. They would be subcontractors unless they're PAYE. Is that correct? That is a very good question, and I know it can be a little bit controversial, grey, I suppose, grey area. If you wouldn't mind posting that on PCS, and once I've done this SPD, I'll go back and I'll show you how to ask a question. Please do that, because I think we want to know what Dundee City Council thinks of that rather than what I think of that, because everybody will have their own interpretation of that. But it's a very good question. So if they are self-employed and they do their own accounts, and you know they just send you an invoice and you pay the invoice and they prepare their own accounts, then yes, I would think so. They would be subcontracted, but please do just ask that question. Right. So I have now finally got the ability. So I'm going to say, I'm just going to put license. I can't remember if it's got an S or an E or a C, but anyway, license, whatever it is. Who issued it? Forgive my ignorance. Is it DVLA? I don't know. I don't think it is. Does it expire on a certain date or not? If so, you click on the calendar. So let's just say it expires at the end of June. Do you want to get a reminder to upload a new one? Yes. Do you want to store it so you can use it again? Yes. That would save me having to do that the next time. Do you want it for just this question or multiple questions? Let's just say it's just this question. So then you go to this bit here, choose file. So you choose the file. I'm going to take my health and safety policy again, just because it's there and it's handy. So you can see the full title this time. And then this is where people can make mistakes, is that you might think, right, I'll just go next on this one. But that has not been saved. There are no documents attached. And I often get panicked calls from my clients and they go, Julia, I keep uploading it and they're not there the next time I go in. What's going on? And that's why it's because you need to save them here. And then it tells you, ta-da, the document has been uploaded. Return to response. Takes a wee minute again. And it should appear down at the bottom. You have to be very patient. And this is why I do not want you to do this the day before it's due in or anything like that, because you will be surprised sometimes how long it takes. So you can see there quite clearly that you've got a document there that you've uploaded against that particular question. Remember, mine is gobbledygook because I'm not a taxi operator. Your answers will be different. Okay, so if we go next. Right, they've not asked anything about turnover, so we can just skip over that. I just love it when that happens. Then they're asking about insurances. And it's £10 million. So you've got employers insurance. And it's £10 million. And you just basically say you can tick that you've got it or that you will obtain it beforehand. You can also tick no. Now, if you tick no here, that's you saying you're not going to get employer's insurance and it will be a fail, automatic fail. So I would say no. If you think 10 million is a lot and it's more than what you've currently got, then you could ask a question to say, for small businesses, even if it's like one driver, would they, or two drivers or whatever, would you consider having a lower limit on the employers? Or if, like me, your business is exempt, then you would click not applicable there. This would be the same again. So if you do have employers insurance, then this is where you would upload it again. So you go through that same process that we've just been through. And in all other types listed, there was public liability and motor insurance. So public is 5 million, and third party as a minimum. So you would again say, yes, you've got that. There's no option to say not applicable in this case because it is important that you've got public liability and the motor insurance. And then you would upload those as well. So you would click yes, and then you would say public liability, if I could spell it. That's still not right. Liability, insurance certificate. And then you're going to upload. If you don't already have it, then that's fine. But see, if you next time you did one, if you do say save it for other times, then you can click on there and it'll take there. So you're going to upload again. I'm sure this must be taking me to another bit of a website or something, why it takes so long to upload. I'm just going to put my public liability insurance certificate, and I put 23 to 24. Who is it? You know, I don't know. Aviva. When does it expire? Do I want a reminder? Yes, because then you can upload it again. Do you want to store it? Yes. Choose the file. Just do that one again. And then save. Turn to response. And this is where we have to wait for it again. Any more questions, folk? Keep them coming. Oh, Lisa's already sent a question. I love it. Right, so if I go down here. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, so that's I've uploaded that. Now you would need two things. You need your public liability and you need your motor insurance. So you would then upload another document in there. Right, so other, let me see. This is where you've got the Equifax thing. Right, now this is one that I would probably ask a question for. The bidder declares that they have an Equifax score of 35 or above. So this is basically asking you to go into Equifax and check. If your answer is yes, you could put what your score is in here. If the answer is no, or you're not featured on Equifax, then go back to that contract notice and put in the other details. So you could say, you know, we are a newly formed business, have been in business for less than 2 years. We have one set of accounts. Can't type today. Which we have attached. We have also provided a letter of comfort from our bank as requested. So you see, suddenly you're starting to think, actually, this is why you need this amount of time to do it, because if you've got to go to your bank and get a letter, you know, even trying to get hold of anybody in the bank's a blinking nightmare at the moment. But you might need to do that. You might need to go into, well, you should go into Equifax and see if you can find yourself. What you need to do then is add that, and you can see you've got that response up here. You can always click on that cross, and that deletes it if you want to delete it. In this case, if there is a link to the Equifax score, then you could put that in. Or what you could do is if they provide a report in Equifax that you can download, then you could upload that again as another document and upload the evidence. I'm not going to do that because you saw how long it takes to do, but that's that bit. Right, so now it's asking for relevant examples. So an example of experience for the home to school transport involving transportation of children and young people with challenging behaviour or delivering transportation which involve dealing with challenging partners. Partners? You might have challenging partners, challenging passengers over the last 3 years. So this is where they're just asking for, you've got 10,000 characters, which is actually quite a lot. What I would suggest here is that you type something up in a Word document and think about this, how you're going to word this. You've got plenty of space in here to write whatever you like. So you could say, we have been providing ASN, additional support needs, transport for Dundee City Council for 3 years. We have had routes XYZ. We transport 1, 2, 3 children and young people on a daily basis. You could go on. If you haven't had that experience, then presumably as a taxi driver, you do get challenging passengers, and you might even get children have got special needs as passengers, not just home to school. So put in as much on the road have you got? How many passengers a day do you generally have? What sort of, if you've got any examples of where there's a particularly challenging time, anything like that. So make that as detailed as you possibly can. I would say make it confidential. There's no reason not to. You're not going to upload anything there. And then they're asking about the environmental measures that you would put into place in this contract. So have a think about what those could be. So in here, for example, you could have the vehicles that you use. So do you use hybrids, or do you use electric, or a minimum of Euro 6? Whatever you think, but be specific. Have as like each vehicle and all that. What about routes? Minimize the mileage. Could you employ local people? Could you have the personal assistants, or they might be called something else, that they live close to the route that they will be assisting on? Anything else you can think of? Do you have a paperless system? Anything else you can think of that you think helps with the miles? It doesn't have to be written out loads of like an essay type. It could be bullet points like this, but you could start with these bullet points and then expand on them. Again, what I would say is you might want to do this in a Word document and then come and cut and paste it into here. The reason is, and I don't know, I've not had experience of this, because you don't usually see these written responses in here. That's the first time I've seen them. But sometimes with systems you get timed out, and the last thing you want to do is be writing your like an absolute answer you're delighted with. It's got loads of details in it. You go to save it and it says, oh, you've been logged out. So avoid that by typing it up in Word in the first. Are you going to be subcontracting it in this case? It's all in-house. And I'm going to next that. Right, so this is looking for a health and safety policy at the minimum, or an ISO accreditation for health and safety, or any other sort of health and safety. So you would say yes. Then they do want you to upload this because it's been asked as a question. So I'm not going to go through that again, but you would click yes there and upload your health and safety policy. Right, now that is us completed this, and this is a bit that even I get a little bit stuck on sometimes, because it's hard to get out of it. It's hard to get out of it. Right, so we go to summary up here. I'm not sure if it's doing it, or I haven't clicked that. No, I haven't clicked it properly. So I've now clicked that, and I can see over here there's a little circle going around, so I know that it's doing something, but it's not very obvious that it's doing something. Just going to have to be patient again. Patient is not something that comes naturally to me. I remember my mum telling me that when I was a little girl, and she was right. Okay, so here we go. Here is our SPD. So what you can do is you can actually go through it all and see everything that you've done. Let me see if there's any red bits. Yeah. So this is what I wanted to show you. If you have got anything that you have, remember I said I left one blank on purpose? It was so that I could show you this. So you can immediately go down, take a note of that, 3A6, and you know that you'd have to go into there to complete that. So I'm just going to scroll down, see if there's any other reds. Obviously, you'd be looking at this in a lot more detail than I am. Yep, so there's another one where I didn't tick whether evidence was available or not, left that unanswered. So I'll make a wee note of that on my little notepad. Right, okay, so if I go scroll up to the top again, what you can do is you can export that as a PDF and have a look at it. You can export it in Word and export it in Excel. Or as we're going to do, we're going to save and exit. Do you want to save answers so you can reuse them? No, I'm not going to, because I've put a lot of gobbledygook in there for this one, so I'm not going to. But that's new functionality, because previously every time you did it, you had to redo all of these answers. But because I've put lots of stuff in there that aren't actually right for me, for my business, I'm going to leave that at the moment. Now, you see down here, you've got two options, save only and save and lock. I can't save and lock. And the reason I can't save and lock is I've got those two answers that I need to go back to complete before it'll allow me. But just say I've ran out of time now, got to go and make lunch, whatever, got to go and do some work, other work. You can just click save only, and lo and behold, it takes you back out to where you were originally. Feels like a long time ago. And you can go in here when you're ready and edit your SPD in there. Just want to point out there is a technical support for PCS. You can either email them, or I find it better phoning them, because then they'll actually be able to see what you're getting stuck on. If you try and describe it by email, it can get a bit lost in translation. So have a, if you get stuck with that SPD, now apparently the SPD is the one that they get the most questions about. So do have a look at, if you get stuck on that, don't fret about it, just give them the phone. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to have a look at the documents that you need to complete. So if we look at downloads, then within there, these are the documents that we downloaded. Now, as I said before, what I would normally do if I was working on this, I'd copy these. I don't copy the whole folder, because when it's in a zip, it seems to act differently. But I would basically copy these into a folder called Dundee City Council, 13th of May. Now the first one, these are, as you can see, are all appendices. So you've got Appendix 1 with an ONE for some reason rather than 1, like these are all numbers. 1, 2, 3, 3A, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then you've got the actual tender itself. So the Appendix 1 is a specification which you need to read, but you don't need to complete, whereas the rest of these all do need to be completed. So I'm going to first of all just open up the tender itself. Okay, so in here, this is the thing that you would read in the first instance. Just have a read through this. Either, depends how you like to do it, have a notebook next to you and jot down some of the key things, or you might want to highlight certain things in here. So we just got definitions and so on. And then this tells you what you're going to get. You're going to have the framework for unidentified routes, that's lot 54 and 55. And then there's going to be contracts awarded for the specific lots. So you can either bid for the lots, enter in the framework, or bid for both. And that's where it tells you about those different lots. This is where it tells you some of this information is repeated, by the way, from what's in the contract notice, and that's to be expected. So you've got to make sure you read this. Now, what it tells you is what you've got to upload. So when I looked at Appendix 1, it doesn't look to me like that does need to be uploaded, but I think I'll ask a question myself about that just to make sure, so that you know for sure. Just a clarification on that. But all the other ones, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the SPD that we've just done, they all need to be completed and uploaded. Sometimes what I like to do is, and they've pointed this out, and it's a good point, respond on the basis that they don't know you, they've got no prior knowledge of you. So last thing you want to do is leave something crucial out and they say, but we know you've got that, or we know you've done that. And they say, well, but you would have known that. It's standalone, this tender. It's a standalone tender. It's got to be on the basis that they don't know anything about you. So there's 2 different pricing schedules that you've got to complete. Right, now what it says is that no single operator can win more than 60% of the identified routes. That doesn't mean to say that you can't apply for more than 60%, but you won't be able to be awarded more than 60%. So I just don't want to put all their eggs in the one basket. Okay, so have a good read through that, and that'll give you information on the tender itself. Remember that they must be paying the real living wage. So make sure that's incorporated into your pricing. £12 it is as of October 23. There is a deadline on questions, which is the 26th of April. So actually that's only just over a week. So please do make sure after today's session that you go download all these documents and read through them line by line, making a note of anything that you're not sure about. Do not be shy in asking questions. If you're not sure about something, you won't be the only one, you know, and even if you are the only one, it doesn't matter. Ask the question, and don't think it's because you're not experienced or you don't do many of these bids. The chances are there is something that you need to be able to explain a bit further. Okay, so that's all okay. We've done the SPD, but have a reader through of that. Then we've got the technical response. So these are the ones that I was saying to you, they're actually a lot more than what is listed in the contract notice. There's only 4 questions listed in the contract notice, but those are the scored ones. As well as that, there are the pass-fail ones as well. So we'll see that when we come on to it. But when it comes on to these scored ones, you've got the resources, 3%. The vehicles, and I see in here this scoring criteria. So if you will get full marks of 4 if all your fleet is electric or hybrid. You'll get 3 if you've got some Euro or hybrid, and 2 if you've got Euro, whatever it is, I think, on all the fleet. Now, if that isn't listed somewhere else, then Euro what? You know, Euro 4, Euro 5, Euro 6, it needs to be specified. And here again, it is just about the living wage. In here, that's all you need to put in. So pricing is the biggest part of it. There's also a question on personal data, but you'll see all this when you go into the actual appendixes. So this is how they're going to evaluate your bids. So here you can see it all in one place, what all the scored questions are, and then you've got all these pass-fail questions as well. They're all scored out of 4. And then you've got the commercial response as well, which is your pricing. Okay, so they are hoping to award confirmed letters by the 15th of July, but you should get a provisional award on the 11th of June. Then you've got all the terms and conditions there. Okay, so that's the tender document, which obviously you need to go through. I just wanted to quickly show you this one, which is Appendix 2. And this is your technical questions. So the SPD is already, we've done that, but this is, you know, you can have a look through this if you need to. But then you get into stage 2, which is answering these questions. So if I just do enable editing on this, just to show you what I would do. So first of all, I would definitely save this as, I would call it Appendix 2 Taxi Company A, or whatever your name is. And that way, when you save it as that, you know it's one that you've done. That's my sort of wee routine I get into. I put the company name in it, and then I know that it's one that I've completed. So if I go down here, just to start to get into these. So confirm that we comply in full with specification of requirements. That's Appendix 1. So just copy and paste that. Oh, why is it not pasting? Why is it not doing that? Oh, that's a bit weird. It's all viewed out. It's not letting me. Oh, it's a read-only document. Ah. Right, now it's letting me doing it. So be careful if that's what happens to you. You might need to just change it from read-only to edit. So we confirm that we comply in full with the specification of requirements. That's all you need to do for that one, and that's a pass-fail. How you will ensure that you comply with the relevant engine spec if a compliant vehicle goes off the road. So you'll have to answer that one. So you've got to put your response in there. So what to do is just go in. Now, if you want to, what you can do is you can make your font a different color, like make it a blue. And then it's a bit easier when you're scrolling through it to see what you've put in here. So go through and answer all these questions. Sorry, I just get a bit OCD about extra spaces that aren't required. So just answer each of these questions. So there's 4 points. So you just put 1, you just put noted or whatever it is. 2, 3, 4, like that. Okay. So they're trying to make it as simple as possible. Okay. So that might make more sense to you about the addresses, because that will affect the price, because you've got to go and pick up the personal assistance. So basically just go through all of these questions and you start to then get into the scored ones. It has got the full details of what they mean by all the Euro things. So you would put what your vehicles are in here. So they've actually made it fairly straightforward, to be fair, to answer these questions. Because that one, they're only really asking you to say which one of these applies to you. And then, so yeah, more and more questions. But these are not time consuming. They're not like 3, 4, 5 page answers. So because it's your business, you should be able to go through these quite quickly. What I tend to do, just say there's one that you're not sure about. What I tend to do is I do review and put a comment in and put ask, ask Andy or whatever it is. Then when there's ones that you've got to go back to, it's quite easy because you can just go to next comment, like just say I scroll back up here now and I'm in here, and then I just go next comment and it takes me to that. So if there are ones that you don't reply to, just put in a comment like TBC, to be confirmed, like that, and it just means that when you're going through it, try and answer as many as you can. But if there are some that you can't answer, then you'll know exactly. It just means you're limiting the risk of you missing out a question. So for each of these appendices, you have got to complete them and then upload them. So I'm going to show you how to do that again. So here's the pricing schedule. Read all these instructions. Presumably I'm not sure why these have got figures in them. I don't know. I'm going to ask that question. Unless yeah, I don't know. I will ask that question and then it'll pop up. I see since we've been started this, there's already 3 questions and answers been published. So let's have a wee looky back in here. So I'm still in the post box here. So I'm going to save and exit that post box. I can go back into here, not into the, if I go in there, I go back into the post box. But if I want to actually just go back into the tender itself, I click on the title and I can look at the Q&A again. And you go down and you can see there's been an answer. I don't know if that answers your question, Lisa. If it doesn't answer your question, then feel free to go back and ask them another follow-up question. Yeah, if you feel that the answers aren't very helpful, I totally get that question. If you're operating in Angus and you want to expand into Dundee, then you're not going to have a Dundee license at the moment, but you could certainly get one if you're going to be successful in getting these routes. So you'll know better than me, is there a cost in getting those licenses? And what you would be saying is you don't really want to buy a license if you're not successful, or is it a chicken and egg sort of situation? If so, feel free to put in a follow-up question on that. I'm going to ask one about pricing. So I haven't shown you how to ask a question, so I'll just do that just now. And I could be being stupid here because I haven't read the instructions on that pricing schedule. And maybe if I read those instructions, then it would be pretty obvious. So Appendix 3 appear to be already populated with pricing. Please clarify. Submit. It's as easy as that. And then when you go into your questions, gosh, it's slow. I've got the wee circle of doom up on the left-hand side here. It's just taking its time. So you can go in here, back to Q&A again, and you can see down at the bottom that that's one that's pending that they haven't answered yet. So that is the end of the demo.